Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome, dear viewers, to a new edition of Clarity from Confusion. It is me, Hashim, from this crazy channel that I've created, that I've constructed from absolutely nothing. And yeah, I built this from scratch, guys. And look how far we've come. It's amazing. No, I'm just playing. We're literally, I think I've got like 3 viewers, 2 of which are my family members, 1 of which is me. But we're getting criticism. We're constructive, that is, telling me my content sucks, that I need to completely change it. We're gonna do that, over time. We're changing, we're chopping, we're changing, and we're making it better. But in any case, we're gonna jump straight into the video. Clarity from confusion. Bringing clarity to a confused world. That's the tagline. That's the headline. Bismillah. Let's jump in. God's existence and its implications. So, what's the point of today's video? It's number 1, to go through a proof of God's existence, but we're actually going to do the implications first. The implication, you know what I'm saying? We're going to talk about the reliance of our worldview on God's existence. Now, what makes a worldview? There's a lot of different factors, but we are going to focus on these 4 that I have here, which are ontology, epistemology, morality, and justice. Let's jump straight in. Ontology asks the question, what exists? What does exist? What brought things into existence? We believe that's God. We believe that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, Allah means the God in Arabic. So don't get confused. Don't let me lose you on that. Like barely even a hurdle. And we have the seen and the unseen. What's the seen? The seen world, the material world. What we can see, hear, smell, touch, feel. The materialists, they're all about this world, They're saying that this is the only thing that exists. But we as Muslims, we also believe in the unseen, which is the jinn, the angels. They exist in a world parallel to ours that is unseen. The jinn are just like beings that exist within that world, within that realm. And we believe that God created all of this. Now, I don't want to go too far into what the jinn are and stuff like this, but maybe we can do another video on that. But I need to see the reaction. I need to see you guys commenting, saying, what are these things? Am I provoking thought? Is that what's happening? If so, let me know in the comments below. In any case, ontology, very quickly to summarize. What exists? That's what the question it asks. We as Muslims is what we believe exists. Epistemology, what is it? Where do we derive our knowledge from? Okay, as Muslims, yes, our foundation is the Quran and Sunnah. This is how we interact with the world. This is how we, create our morality and everything else. It comes from Quran and Sunnah. It's a derivative of that. Now, that doesn't mean that we are anti-science or anything like this. No, that's ridiculous. In fact, the majority of scientific revolutions that really got us where we are now as a civilization, as humankind, a lot of it was done during the Abbasid Caliphate, and even in Cordoba, in the remnants of the Umayyad Caliphate in Spain, there was a lot of scientific revolution there. And, we could even expand that to say that maybe it was to do with their understanding of looking out into the stars that helped navigation become a thing, which is why Spain went on and became the first global empire. And then you have Portugal, and you know what I mean? There's a whole rabbit hole that we can go down, guys. But in any case, we're not averse to science. In fact, it is encouraged to, get a better understanding of this dunya so we can even appreciate God even more. Alhamdulillah, God is great. So epistemology asks the question, where do we derive knowledge from? Where do you get your ideas from, Morality, what is right? What is wrong? Simple, everyone knows it. Is morality objective or subjective? Do we believe in social consensus? Enough people vote on something and then it's okay to do? No, that's ridiculous. Who believes in that? Most people believe in subjective morality, but as Muslims, no, we don't. We believe in what is right and wrong is set. It's objective. The Quran and Sunnah tell us what's right and wrong. So e.g. hijab. Hijab is fard, it's wajib. You have to do it. You don't got a choice. God tells you to do it, you do it. Simple as. Similarly, food and drink that we can eat. So we can't eat like pork and pig and these sort of things, ever, off limits. We can eat chicken and lamb and stuff like this when it's sacrificed in the right way. So we have guidelines that tell us what is right and what is wrong. The next step is justice. Okay, our morality informs our justice. So if something is wrong, then it is punished. If something is right, then it is praised. So how do we run a society in a just manner? We believe the implementation of the Sharia law, that is the correct way to create a functioning society. And when you have a functioning society with a justice system, then that means that you can have a foundation in which you can construct a civilization, in which it'll give rise to the education systems, it'll give rise to the scientific experimentation, it'll give rise to all these different advancements of humankind. Why? Because you have a safe area that you can actually construct these things, these institutions, right? And so the Sharia, the punishments that are in place are going to deter people from committing the crimes in the first place. Just by hearing the fact that if you steal 3 times, you're going to get your hand cut off. Okay, guess what? No one's going to steal, right? Whereas if you say something like, oh, if you steal, you get 2 months in prison, then you're back out on the streets again. Okay, well, that's not really much of a deterrent, is it? Because even if they get caught, they're just going to go out and do the same thing again. And there's not real even rehabilitation that happens within prison systems in most of the world. And so why do I mention these different facets of a worldview? Well, what happens if our belief in God is weak? It has a direct impact on our worldview, because the entire worldview, as is stated so eloquently here, is contingent on the strength of this belief. If there is a weakness in this, then the next most prominent belief system will take its place, i.e., secular liberal thought, secular liberalism as an ideology, post-Enlightenment style thinking that says that there's no such thing as God, there's no such thing as heaven or hell, and that this place, we have to make this world into heaven by having Netflix streamed into our eyeballs and into our brain. And Elon Musk is going to chip us and, I mean, I digress. But you get the idea. The idea is that we don't want to be secular liberal thinkers. We want to be Islamic thinkers. Yes, from our core. Doesn't matter who it is, whether it's some intellectual in university or some guy baking bread, They call him the baker because he makes all the bread. We want everyone to be thinking in this God-centric way, that I submit to Allah, I submit to God and what God says. But the thing that precedes this is that we actually believe holistically in God Almighty. And how do we do this? Well, number one, it's just from our nature to believe in God. Number one, first proof of God's existence is that we're born believing in God. Simple as. Open, closed. But then we have other mechanisms in which we can prove God's existence, and we can make this into a broader series. But if we go straight into one of my favorite proofs, which is the water cycle, you have something like a river, right? So at the top we see here the source of the river, and then you see a river, it goes into several stages. They have the youthful stage, the middle stage, and then the old stage, in which it gets a lot larger and stuff. And then you have the river going into the sea, and the sea water evaporates and goes into the sky and cools and becomes a cloud, and then the breeze will gently push it over the land, and then it'll rain down when the pressure gets a little less, and then it'll fill up the rivers again, and we can all drink that water. And not only that, but we can irrigate that water, and we can, it'll give rise to all these plants and trees and everything else. And then we can, from that, get our vegetables and our fruits. And so that's arable farming, which is the growing of crops. Those crops can then be refined and given to animals, or animals can just live off the grass. And those cows and the sheep will then produce more products for us that we can consume, such as milk. We can use the wool from the back of a sheep to make clothing. The same trees that can provide us with apples, we can chop down and make fire. We can make structures, we can make settlements, we can make whole houses and towns and villages and all these sort of things, and so on and so forth. And so from water, you get everything, really. You get the food that you want to eat, you get the shelter, you get wood that you can then use to make fire, everything that you need to sustain life a perfect system to sustain life. So water, is constantly purified, allows us to grow crops and farm animals. A system so perfect it has to be designed, and that is the proof. They say the proof is in the pudding. Well, the pudding is the earth, and the proof's right there. Look around. Yes, next time you see a leaf, think to yourself, this has to be designed. It takes in carbon dioxide, which I exhale, and then it produces oxygen, which I inhale. Yeah, that's why they call the Amazon rainforest the lungs of the earth, because it literally takes in the carbon dioxide, pumps out oxygen so that we can all breathe, right? And so every single thing, there's meaning in everything. You just look around and the world's just bursting with meaning, down to the tiniest molecule, expanded to the entire universe. And so, subhanAllah, what else do you need really to believe in God? But when you have that, and that there's strength in your belief of God, then as a consequence, the knock-on effect, the implication of that, if we're to go back to our worldview, is that we're going to submit to God in everything, in terms of believing in the Quran and the Sunnah as our foundation. One of the names of the Quran is Al-Furqan, the decider, the standard that we rule against. And our morality and our justice system, which is basically the exact same thing. I mean, there is no difference between our morality and our justice system. It's, if something's wrong, it gets punished. It's not like within liberal secular thought, something you might say that, you could give an example, for instance, and this is kind of disgusting, but if you say something like incest, if it's two people that love each other and they're not hurting anyone, then there's no real moral issue with that. There's just an issue with the justice system, because there's a separation of morality and justice within a liberal, perspective, within their worldview. Whereas within Islam, we don't have any separation of that. Yes, we're so consistent with our morality, and our justice system is the exact same. We don't have anything to hide. Whereas within liberal thought, you just go a little, you just try to envision, do whatever you want, and except if you hurt someone. And then you'll find the most disgusting things are actually permissible and allowed morally. It's just the justice system's holding it back from happening. But in any case, if we're to talk about this proof of the water giving rise to crops and food and animals and all these sort of things, it's all so succinctly summarized in this verse of the Quran in Surah Baqarah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. The one who has made the land a habitat for you and the sky a structure, and has sent water down from the sky and has brought out products thereby as provision for you. So do not assign rivals to Allah while you know. Very simple. You have the proof. You know that God exists. He's created all of this for us. He's given us the water. And from that we can make our, He's provided food for us that just grows miraculously out of the ground, which will produce so much more seeds. You just throw out those seeds and you get even more food. What does God ask of us or tell us not to do? Because we know this now. Don't assign rivals to God if we are aware of this. Don't submit to the will of anything else. Don't submit to anything else as something that you're going to follow, that you're going to submit to, that you're going to worship. Don't worship your own desires. Don't worship yourself, which are basically two of the greatest idols constructed in the modern day. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes? Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Follow what God has given us in terms of the holy book, the Quran, and as well as that, the Sharia, as well as that, the life guidance within the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Follow this, because this is what God's given us as our guide. In any case, we may make this into a broader series about, proofs for God's existence. But I really just wanted to summarize by saying that, the source of everything is God and our worldview. And if we don't really make that strong, if we don't make that firm, the Shahada is literally the first pillar of Islam. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. There is no God except Allah, and Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. If we don't have that super, super firm in our hearts and in our minds, then it's going to have a knock on effect somewhere else down the line within our worldview. So start with that. And then when you're so certain that God exists and we have to follow him, then you're going to know with certainty that the Quran is the correct book to follow, that the Sunnah of Rasulullah is how we as men and women should live our lives. And then the rules that come alongside that we follow completely to the point. Yeah, and just constantly be aware of the separation between our worldview and perspective in contrast to a secular liberal framework. They're not the same. They're very different from the very, very get-go. Secularism is basically allowing humans to become God by legislating right and wrong. And liberalism is the worship of desire as the guiding principle of how to define what's right and wrong. So reject both of those claims and say, actually, God is the one that needs to be worshipped, and God tells us what's right and wrong. Don't follow these other idols that have been constructed within the minds of people, the minds of men. In any case, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this, and we're going to keep on producing content slowly but surely. We're going to get there. Jazakallah khairan. Please do comment down below if you liked it, if you didn't like it, any recommendations for me, anything you'd like me to discuss. And we'll see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.